Our call to worship words are those of the Reverend Teresa Soto from their book, Spilling the Light. Bring your broken hallelujah here. Bring your broken hallelujah here. Bring the large one that is beyond repair, the small one that's too soft to share. Bring your broken hallelujah here. I know people have told you that before you can give, you have to get yourself together. They overstated the value of perfection by a lot, or they forgot. You are the gift. We all bring some broken things, songs and dreams and long lost hopes. But here and together, we reach within. As a community, we begin again. And from the pieces, we will build something new. There is work that only you can do. We wait for you. Let us join in worship together.
May nothing evil cross this door, and may ill fortune never pry. About these windows may the roar and rain go by. 'Tis the By faith made strong, the rafters will withstand the battering of the storm. This heart, though all the world grow chill, will keep you warm. We shall walk softly through these rooms, touching our lips with holy wine, till every casual corner blooms into a shrine. With laughter drown the raucous shout, and though these sheltering walls are thin, may they be strong to keep it out and hold love in.
Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshipper, lover of leaving, ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come.
I am often asked what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. I think my response may be common among Unitarian Universalists. I try to be factual, not speak for all UUs, throw in my succinct or totally meandering origin story, and awkwardly trip over the imaginary line between evangelizing and just being enthusiastic about my faith. This usually leads to an internal debate about whether the person asking was simply looking for one sentence or a personal invitation to worship on Sunday morning. It's easier when I begin with this. We are a covenantal faith. We make agreements about how we will be together. Though our ideas about God and the mysteries of the universe are varied, our ideals about how we build the beloved community are shared. Many of these shared values are here in this covenant, printed in the gray hymnal. We, the member congregations of the UA, covenant to affirm and promote. And then we list our principles and our sources of wisdom. And we conclude in part that we enter into this covenant, promising to one another our mutual trust and support. Other covenants are created among members of one congregation or of small groups. Children and youth may create covenants when they begin a new program year. These aren't rules about what not to do, but statements of intention about what we will try our best to do. Covenants are created by the group as they discuss and come to an agreement about how they wish to be together in ways that are healthy and respectful. Having a covenant gives us a way forward when agreements come easily, and it gives us a way to come back together when things are hard. I invite you to think about covenant when you think about hymn number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are. Come, come, whoever you are, wanderer, worshiper, lover of leaving. Ours is no caravan of despair. Come, yet again come. The words are adapted from the poet Rumi. It is often sung as an opening hymn. So who is this hymn inviting? And what are we, as Unitarian Universalists, being invited into when we sing or read these words? Come, come. This is not a command, but a beckoning. Come, come, whoever you are. We are beckoned no matter who we are. Wanderer, worshiper. No matter if your spirit wanders idly or wonders in awe, or you can't tell because it's all part of the journey, we are called here to be with others. And that part is important because Rumi says not just wanderer, worshiper, but lover of leaving. Humans have tendencies to leave, sometimes to explore new places, but sometimes to leave when things get hard, when our relationships with each other become strained. It doesn't matter, Rumi says. Ours is no caravan of despair. A caravan means a group of people moving together. We need not despair because Unitarian Universalists covenant to work together, to help one another unlearn harmful behaviors and learn or reinforce those that are healthy and helpful. What Rumi says next is not a line that made it into the hymn, but I think it is at the very essence of this piece. Come, even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. Even if you have broken your vows 1,000 times. This is powerful. What if there was a whole religious community around you that told you you were welcome, no matter who you are, to be part of a movement of people working to be their best selves, and you would still be part of this gathered body of people even if you broke your vows 1,000 times? That is the strength of being in this covenantal faith.
I invite you into the spirit of prayer or meditation, as is your practice, with these words from the Reverend Lynn Cox. Spirit of life, who draws us together in a web of holy relationships, make your presence known with us and in us and among us. Remind us that we are not alone in history. Ignite with us the courage of the living tradition. Remind us we are not alone in entering the future. Anchor us with patience and perseverance. Remind us that we are not alone in our times of grief and pain. Comfort us with your spirit, manifest in human hands and hearts. Remind us that we are not alone in joy and wonder. Inspire us to honor, extend the beauty we find in this world. Divine music of the universe. Let our hearts beat in diverse and harmonious rhythms, cooperating with an everlasting dance of love. May we move with the rhythms of peace. May we move with the rhythms of justice. May we move together in community, source of stars and planets and water and land. Open our hearts to all of our neighbors. Open our souls to a renewal of faith. Open our hands to join together in the work ahead. So be it. Blessed be. May it be so. Our reading is Radical Honesty, the words of Adrienne Marie Brown from the book Pleasure Activism, The Politics of Feeling Good. We begin learning to lie in intimate relationships at a very early age. Lie about the food your mother made to avoid punishment as you swallow your tears, about the love you want and how you feel. Most of this is taught as heteropatriarchy 101. Men love one way, women love another. And we have to lie to impress each other. Women are still taught to often be submissive, diminutive, obedient, and later, nagging caregiving. These mistruths and gender norms are self-perpetuating, affirmed by magazines and movies, girded by families at dinner time. We also learn that love is a limited resource and that we love and need too much, that we are too much. We learn to shrink, to lie about the whole love we do need, settling with not quite good enough in order to not be alone. We have to engage in an intentional practice of honesty to counter this kind of socialization. We need radical honesty, learning to speak from our root systems about how we feel and what we want. Speak about our needs and listen to others' needs. To say, I need to hear you say you miss me. When you're high all the time, it's hard for me to feel your presence. I lied. The way you talked to that man made me feel unseen. Your jealousy leads me to feel like an object, not a partner. The result of this kind of speech is that our lives begin to align with our longings and our lives become a building block for authentic relationship and ultimately a society that is built around true need and real people, not fake news and useless norms. I invite you now to join in singing hymn number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. As Unitarian Universalists, we are a people of covenant. According to the Cambridge.org definition, a covenant is a formal agreement between two or more people. Our own families have covenants. All families do. As we grow up, we learn to live into these spoken and unspoken agreements. Adrienne Marie Brown's reading today spoke of family and cultural lessons, teaching us where the bounds of truth are tolerated and where they are not. Brown says we begin to learn to lie in intimate relationships at a very early age. Our families and culture indoctrinate us into believing that we have to be a certain way to be accepted or loved. There's a beauty to unabashed truth-telling of children. Have you ever had one of those conversations with a child during that window before the developmental stage where the filter drops down over their frontal lobe? I had one of these conversations with my niece years ago, who eventually learned the art of polite lying, but not before the day I asked her this question. When Kate and I grow old, will you take care of us? In all seriousness, she looked at me and said, "No, Aunt Donna, you better ask my brother." Since that time, she eventually integrated the art Brown was talking of. Thank you for the gifts, the ones she didn't like, and that sort of thing. This conversation is an endearing memory, although clearly Kate and I need a long-term care plan for ourselves as we age. There was no risk for my niece that day in her truth-telling. She wasn't going to be kicked out of the family or risk her job, refuse service at a restaurant, be in danger in some way in the walls of her own home for truth-telling. We had a culture of trust, where it was indeed safe enough for her to say exactly what she was thinking. No, Aunt Donna, you better ask my brother. She was gently honest that day. In spite of our enhanced skill development with what some might call polite responses as we age, we're not shielded from uncomfortable situations. My first Unitarian Universalist minister used to say, if we get close enough to someone, we will see their warts. I was serving as a lay leader at the time. We had the kind of relationship, my minister and I, that gave us an opportunity to see each other's warts. Sometimes it was a mistake in priority that I made, and she responded. At other times, since ministers aren't immune from being human, that after a long day, she responded in ways that were more abrupt than her usual. We had a covenant of both accountability and forgiveness. A restoration and redemption of sorts was available to us through the covenant that we had, based on the first UU principle of respecting the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Both families and congregations are equally full of warts. These restoration opportunities are all around us. Covenants are made for just such occasions. They're designed to hold the full humanity of who we are and invite us back into covenant, back into let's try this again. An approach of it goes like this. When covenants are lived into artfully, they create space for us to bring our full selves into life, where we don't have to hide or prove our worthiness, where we can forgive and be forgiven as we are called back into covenant. When we risk living into any semblance of authentic community, we will see each other's warts. Perhaps by that time, we will have come to know each other in the fullness of our being. See each other for not only three-dimensional people someday, but multi-dimensional people. seeing each other's strengths as well as weaknesses. But that's not always the painting canvas that we lead with. Sometimes the canvas we use is not blank. It's not waiting for some creative development of relationship. Sometimes it's like the paint with water pages, where it doesn't matter what color or brush you're using, the picture underneath is set with no creative reflection, leading us to the least charitable outcome. This congregation doesn't have a covenant. Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church has an amazing vision, an amazing history, and yet no congregational covenant. The canvas of being creative in beloved community, this opportunity still exists here. Since Unitarian Universalism is a covenantal faith, it's serious business and worth considering. One example of a congregational covenant is this. We affirm our commitment to this community by covenanting to listen with compassion, to speak with respect and kindness, to take responsibility for our own acts and feelings, to support the church as we're able, to engage in open, caring, and informed discussion of the decisions that affect us, to practice our A2U principles in this congregation and in the world. Closed quote. Unitarian Universalism does not have a creed or just one statement of faith, so our covenant is what holds us together as we are welcomed into our own free and responsible search for truth and meaning. This is not some new novel trend. The Cambridge Platform of 1648 embodied the framework of covenant. It outlined elements to a congregation's covenant, including, remember, 1648, a voluntary agreement, a relationship with God, public worship, observance of the ordinances, which included baptism and communion. The Cambridge Platform is worth a whole sermon series, but suffice it to say that the Puritans were beginning to build the foundation of what would later develop into some of the kinds of covenants that we hear about today. Along the way, there were others, and certainly before, if we look at some ancient scriptures, we see covenants there. If we fast forward from the Cambridge Platform to 1880, Charles Gordon, a Unitarian minister, developed one for the church he founded in Philadelphia, and it read, "In the freedom of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of man." And time ticked on, with James Philip Blake writing his own covenant in 1892, which remains in our hymnal today. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek truth in love, and to help one another. And still, later in 1933, Universalist minister L. Griswold Williams wrote, "A covenant for free worship." The original text of this 1933 piece reads, "Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve mankind in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant with each other and with God." Revised versions over time have shifted the language to broaden it to invite whatever your spiritual path happens to be. Broaden the language to be more inclusive. You can see we're getting a little closer and closer to some of the covenants that you might be familiar with. And there are many, many things to read about covenants, and I invite you to go to the order of service and explore some of the links that you'll find there. Unitarians and Universalists and Unitarian Universalists have been working on covenants for generations. They continue to shift and have become individualized to each community and sometimes to committees. A2U2, Religious Ed Committee, has a covenant that guides their work, and it goes like this. We, the RE Committee of A2U2, agree to support the leadership of our Director of Religious Education by uniting in our common cause, working to fulfill our mission and vision for the families and members of our church. Commit our time and effort while being mindful of self-care and balance in our lives. Respect our meeting time together and each other. Participate with active listening and polite I statements. Collaborate and operate by consensus, remembering to slow down and back up when conflict occurs, and honor differences. Meet as a whole group monthly as scheduled, with other subcommittees meeting as needed. And your Board of Trustees has their own guiding covenant for the work that we do. And the covenant reads, treat each other with respect, speak only for yourself. Share your opinion even if divergent. Respect different learning and processing styles. Debate the idea, cherish the person. Verify understanding before responding, come prepared. Honor time commitments. Be present. Remain actively engaged in the life of the congregation. Commit to practicing our 7 principles. We are here for the wellness of the entire congregation. Take care of ourselves in these difficult times. Don't let fear immobilize us. Be mindful of limitations and differing abilities. Avoid side conversations. Speak as one voice, as a board. These covenants, which are embodied in Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's work, invites us to be our whole selves, no matter our identity and in spite of our shortcomings. How beautiful it is that we can practice this way of being together today and every day. When things are great and when things are a hot mess, which sometimes they are. If you've ever been on a committee, mostly a lot of fun, sometimes a little bit of a hot mess. Let us as a community live into Unitarian Universalism in ways that invite us all to the table of this community, to the table of our faith. Please join in singing our closing hymn. We're going to sit at the welcome table.
We're gonna sit at the welcome table. We're gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. We're gonna sit at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. All kinds of people around that table. All kinds of people around that table one of these days, hallelujah. All kinds of people around that table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days. No fancy style at the welcome table. No fancy style at the welcome table one of these days, hallelujah. No fancy style at the welcome table. Gonna sit at the welcome table one of these days.
Again, let us remember the words of Mark Morrison Reed. The central task of the religious community is to unveil the bonds that bind each to all. There is a connectedness, a relationship discovered amid the particulars of our own lives and the lives of others. Once felt, it inspires us to act for justice.